when it comes to our financial lives, there's one event on which we tend to spend more money than we do on any other event, and that has to be the big fat Indian wedding. And a lot goes into the planning of it, but perhaps not as much in the financial planning of it. To talk about that is Anant Ladha, founder of Invest Aaj For Kal. Thank you so much, Anant, for taking the time. And I want to start by asking this. I know a lot of people start planning this, way in advance. Sometimes even before a match is made, you have parents that set aside a little bit of money. I know for all financial goals, setting aside money earlier rather than later is a good idea. But how early is good when it comes to financing a wedding?
Hi, Alex. As you rightly mentioned, earlier you start, better it is, because compound interest, which is the eighth wonder of this world, is in your favor. I will just share a small example. Suppose you need 50 lakh of corpus for your wedding. Your expected rate of return is around 12%. And if you save and invest for 10 years, you will be required to invest 21,000 rupees per month. Versus, just in case you start early and you have 20 years in your kitty, you will be just needed to save 5,000 rupees per month. What I'm trying to say is, everyone talk about compound interest, but let us use it as well. So, as rightly shown in this example, earlier we start, better it is for us.
Start as early as possible. The question, though, is how much should you set aside? Because setting a budget for something like a wedding is a task that has so many moving parts, right? You don't know, first of all, before the match is made, you don't know who you're marrying. You don't know where you're going to get married. You don't know what the rate is going to be when you do get married. And you don't know what inflation is going to be like, right? So how do you set that budget?
This you have to plan it as per your current financial situation. You have to check your asset, liabilities, current regular income, or maybe inflow which you have, and then decide the amount which is feasible for you right now. Reduce it by 20% and then add on the inflation, and you will get your budgeted amount. Here I have typically asked you to reduce it by 20%. This is your buffer amount, which will be for last minute goof ups or last minute emergencies, which are always there in every marriage. Now, when you have the budget amount, decide your expenses in reverse order. Start allocating money according to the importance of a particular expenditure, and you are sorted.
Let's talk about an example of this. And obviously, you would want to have the biggest, best wedding for your child, or in fact, if you're financing it yourself. How much is too much? And you say that there is a 20% buffer, but someone may view things differently. So how do you give us an example as to how this would work?
This will be very personalized depending upon your regular income and your assets. At max, I feel you can allocate amount equal to 1 year to maximum 4 years of your annual income for marriage. Now, whether you will be deciding to allocate 1 year or 4 years completely depends upon your income. Suppose if you have annual package of 20, 30, 40 lakhs, probably 2 year or 3 year of your total annual amount is enough for you to plan your marriage. But if your annual income is lesser, then probably you might have to give your extra years, maybe income of extra years for your for planning your marriage. So this is completely personalized thing. Setting a bare minimum amount cannot be decided without understanding your finances, because marriages in India start from 5 lakh and goes up to 50 crores, completely depending upon your finances.
You said it. In fact, that's why it's called the big fat Indian wedding. But let's talk about borrowing, because this is something that people often do. Is that a very bad idea? Because personal loans are taken, gold loans are taken. Is that a bad idea?
Absolutely. It's the worst idea you can think of. See, post marriages, any which ways, you will have a lot of goals. You will probably plan for your family. Maybe you are 2 to 3 years down the line, you will start planning for your family. You will have goal for buying a home, car, retirement. So you already have a lot of goals in your kitty. Don't start your new life by having a big amount of liability in your kitty. Start afresh. And as we rightly say, marriages will halve your problem, double your joys, but your expenses will be 4 times any which ways. So don't start with a personal liability.
I hope it's not the case for everybody, and in fact, let's hope that they start off on the positive foot that they intend to. But let's talk about instruments then. And I'm guessing that you'd have to break this up based on when you start planning for this and when you start setting aside funds for it, right? So give us a couple of scenarios. One where you're starting a good 10, 15 years earlier, and then let's go closer to the date.
See, if you are starting 10 years in advance, firstly, you will have to use equity mutual fund SIPs, and there is a monthly allocation which you will park in monthly SIPs. Secondly, you can park an amount in gold. Gold you can buy via sovereign gold fund. There you will get additional 2.5%, or maybe you can buy gold ETF. Thirdly, see, I am asking for allocating a small amount in gold because any which ways in your wedding, major amount of expenditure will be somewhat related to gold. So why not plan it in advance? Third important thing which you can use is property investment, especially if your kitty is big. Property investment you can look out for. Final and fourth important point is Sukanya Samriddhi scheme. It is one of the most beautiful scheme because whatever amount you invest in it, you get deduction in ATC section up to 1.5 lakh. Plus the interest earned on the scheme is also tax free. So this is something which you can look out for, especially if you have a girl child. You should surely plan and start investing in Sukanya Samriddhi scheme. If your marriage is probably 5 years or 7 years down the line, you will not buy any new property, but equity and gold, you can continue as it is. Sukanya Samriddhi scheme, you can continue as it is. If your marriage is probably 3 years down the line, your allocation will start moving towards debt fund as well. You should now probably start looking to liquidate your property and park your money in equity, gold, Sukanya Samriddhi scheme, and debt funds. Finally, if your goal is 1 year down the line, and firstly, congratulations to you, you are getting married. Now you should keep all your money, which is for your marriage, purely in debt fund, nothing else. You should start liquidating your equity. Gold, probably you will be start using for buying some ornaments or allocating gold fund. Property, I am very sure you must have already liquidated, and majority amount will be in debt right now.
I have a question with regard to the property, because I know that a lot of families will traditionally think of owning a physical asset because it provides security and all of that. But there is a question when it comes to investing in real estate with the purpose of having long-term returns, right, Anant? Is that you don't know for sure that you're going to find a buyer for the property. You don't know for sure whether the pocket of real estate that you invested in is going to grow at the rate that you want it to grow. So do you still think that real estate is something that you should definitely consider?
If your kitty is big, I personally feel that you can keep a part for real estate. Here, I am not talking about flat. I am talking about probably a property in tier 2 or tier 3 town where interest yields or rental yields are also good on the property. And because it is illiquid, that is why 3 years in advance, you are planning to sell it off and park that amount in equity and debt probably.
Okay, and a follow-up to this, because this is something I'm sure that a lot of people will try to use as well, is that if you are 10, 15 years away from this goal and you're buying property, taking a loan, is that something that you would also recommend if it has to be a big loan?
If it is a big loan, then it might not be a good idea. But if the amount of loan is probably less than your total income which you earn in next 3 to 4 years, then yes, you can take that loan. You will get deduction as well. You will get deduction in section 24B. You will get deduction in section 80C if you plan it properly and you are planning to use that property as well. So yes, we can take some amount of loan if that is not putting you in debt trap.
Also talk about the liquidation. You've said that over a period of 3 years is when you start liquidating your riskier assets, definitely when you come closer to that 1 year period. Do you use the techniques like systematic withdrawal plans or systematic transfer plans? And when you're talking about debt funds, what type of debt funds are you talking about?
I am purely talking about short-term, pure accrual-based debt fund where there is probably minimal duration risk and maximum duration which you can look out for is 1 year in those funds. And yes, SWP or maybe STP might be a good option. You can start shifting your amount from equity to debt fund on a monthly basis.
Let's also talk about the run up to the wedding. And usually, this is when both the parties come into play. Assume now, for example, I'm giving you a scenario, Anant, where two individuals have met, two individuals have decided to marry, and they have decided to split the expenses. What advice would you give to this couple when they're meeting and they're talking about finances for the first time, possibly? How should they go about planning for the wedding? And how should they plan? Because they're going to start, like you said, they're going to start their lives together, they're going to start their financial lives together, and they have to plan for multiple expenses once they do start their lives together.
See, I will firstly accept that discussing about finances is not something which has happened traditionally in our families, and it might be a difficult task. Right now, we will be sharing everything about our personal life, about our professional life, about our social life. So why not build that trust and share your finances as well, so that you can properly plan for it? It will actually help you increase the trust level which the couple might be having. So you can share your liabilities. Especially, I will point this out, do share your liabilities very openly. What I see is, when we are meeting for the first time, or maybe initial days, especially if it's an arranged marriage, we try and hide out our liabilities, and which causes a lot of problem post marriages. So it is always better to be transparent about it. It will actually help you to gain more trust and help you in marriage as well.
Important on a scale of 1 to 10 is it to stick to the budget, because you've talked about how a budget is set, but we all know how these things go, right? The number of plates goes up, and that's the easiest way for the budget to go up. But it's much more than that, right? It's not just necessarily 20%. How important is it for you to stick to the budget?
11. My answer is 11, because if your budget is overshooting, even before the wedding, when wedding happens, you will be completely out of the places. And always remember one thing. This is something which my grandfather always tells me. You are getting married not to impress other people, who in reality won't even care maybe 3 or 4 days down the line. So don't unnecessarily create a hustle in your mind. Don't create unnecessary liabilities. If you can plan a big wedding, obviously, why not? But if it is requiring you to have some unnecessary liabilities, we can probably cut on some of the expenses.
Anant, I think it's been a very fruitful conversation. I hope it's been helpful to a lot of people tuning in. If you are indeed on your way to get married, well, all the best and congratulations, like Anant said. Always a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.